What's going on, everyone? Hamid Trades here, back with another video. The market obviously fell. Clearly intraday was very choppy. Today we had yeah, there we go. We had a very choppy, disgusting day today. But the most important part is to make sure that we mitigate our losses, and that's exactly what we did. So on days that are extremely choppy like this, what ends up happening is setups don't usually work the way that they normally would because there isn't enough momentum towards the trades that are going on. That's what happened today. And that's why stop losses are so important when you do trade. Because on days like this, because not every day is like this, but on days like this, it's very helpful to have a clear defined percentage of your position that you're going to lose. And that you're going to basically risk. So that is basically what happened. And in today's video, overall, I am a bit biased to the bearish side, obviously, continued. But there are a few interesting things going on with certain tech stocks. All right. So in today's video, we're going to go over everything and cover all of that stuff. And yeah, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, do all that good stuff. If you want access to the Discord server, so that we can basically trade together and learn and everything how to trade, go ahead and join the community. Everything is completely for free, and the link is going to be in the bio. So yeah, let's get started with the video. All right, yesterday clearly I was showing how the SPY was in a falling wedge, and I said the falling wedge is basically too good to be true. Usually when there are good setups like this, the market ends up tumbling. And also tomorrow morning, we have CPI data coming out. And then at 12, Fed member is speaking. So this can potentially be pretty bearish. So that's why it's important to not, it could be either way, to be honest. So that's why it's important not to really hold anything heavy overnight. That's why I didn't really alert any swings. And now moving forward, 438.50, essentially 437.50 to 438.50 are going to be very key levels of support on the SPY. Resistance levels to the upside, obviously, you're going to be 444 and 445, right? Very simple. But again, as long as we are trading below this trend line here, which was at the 450 to 451 area, everything is bearishly biased until we can find a bottom and things can start to bounce. All right. One of the good things though is that the lower Bollinger Band is really increasing very fast. So the downside potential on the overall market is lessening very quickly. So for example, if you look on April 8th, the lower Bollinger Band, you could see this number right here. Okay. So the lower Bollinger Band was at 425.99. And now today it's at 431.83. So that's a 6-point move. And essentially, basically, if like tomorrow we go up again, even, 3 points, that's substantial increase. That would basically make it so that if the SPY falls outside of the lower Bollinger Band, that is a good sign of overextensions to the downside. Okay. And when the market is very overextended to the downside, we are usually more like, that's when it starts to look better to buy into calls. You don't buy into puts heavily, especially if you're swinging. You don't buy puts into extreme weakness. You buy into calls into extreme weakness. As these are falling, right? As we're trading outside of the lower B bands, we follow the momentum intraday to the downside, but swinging wise, we are looking to buy calls. And right now it's a good sign that the lower Bollinger Bands are increasing, like they're basically skyrocketing, which is a good sign for bulls. All right. So once again, 437.50 and 438.50 are very key levels of support for the SPY. Yeah, we can see the MACD is oversold. We can see the RSI is moving down sharply as well. But that's that for the SPY. Let's go ahead and take a look at the IWM. So we can see the IWM tested the lower standard deviation today, the lower Bollinger Band. We have clear resist or support at 195.46, right? You can see the MACD is very oversold. The RSI is becoming, slowly falling lower as well. And intraday, we can see that the IWM was not the biggest loser, right? It was the NASDAQ and then the SPY and then the IWM. So the IWM showed the most relative strength to the other indices. So aside from that, really, I mean, until we break back above 200 and until the SPY begins to show strength as well, especially since later on in the week, there's a lot of bank earnings. Those can be really 50-50. Some banks can report really good earnings. Some banks can report really bad earnings. So just be careful for that. But it's going to be a pretty big week for the financial sector, especially this week. All right, so that's really that for the IWM. But now I want to show the large tech stocks and the NASDAQ. All right, so Apple clearly had a bearish close. We have support at 163.76, and we have upper resistance at 168.34. Nothing too special to look at right there, right? Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon clearly also had a bearish close, and we can see now it's very close to the lower level of the Bollinger Band. All right, and I'm not talking about the RSI or the MACD for any of them because they're all literally basically the same. All right, but Amazon is getting very close to the lower Bollinger Band. Tesla obviously had a red day as well, but now Google technically closed outside of the lower Bollinger Band, and Microsoft also technically closed outside of the Bollinger Band as well. So we have Microsoft, Google closing outside of the lower B band, and we have Amazon quickly approaching that level. So 3 of the large tech stocks are starting to become overextended to the downside, which is a good signal for a potential reversal to the upside. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the weakness that we saw in the market for the past week or two, right, is starting to permeate, and it's starting to show like an extreme weakness now for these larger tech stocks. So as we can see, like multiple times in the past, when these companies are trading, especially, large trillion-dollar companies are trading outside of the lower standard deviation, it begins to become like a good dip buying opportunity. Not immediately, but this weakness, as we trade outside of the lower standard deviation, it becomes a much, much better dip buying opportunity the harder we fall. All right. So, as we can see that, literally it's the same concept on all the indices. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because if the large tech stocks are showing this weakness, then that can show and we end up bouncing, right? Not necessarily, I'm not saying we're going to bounce anytime soon, but the fact that we're showing this weakness now is a good sign that we could see a bounce in the NASDAQ soon. Right? And it's a good sign that the large tech stocks are showing extreme weakness to the downside. Yeah, so there's that for the large tech stocks. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. All right, and we can clearly see the NASDAQ close below this very important trend line here, but it held this 340 level. So this whole zone, we're back to this zone, the 338 to 341 zone on the NASDAQ. This is a very, very important zone. And very similarly, we can see that the lower standard deviation, right, this lower Bollinger Band here is increasing substantially as well. We had a low of 327.85, and then today it jumped up to 333.77. So, a pretty substantial increase. And with this moving upwards so much, it is a good sign that the market could show a potential short-term bounce. All right. There's that for the there's that for the overall stock market. Now we really need to take a look at Bitcoin. All right, first of all, Bitcoin was holding 42K. We broke 40K, and now we're retesting this 39.6. This still has a lot more room to go to the downside. And as you can see, we're trading outside of the lower standard deviation. But with a move like this, Bitcoin can easily break down below 39.6, and it can easily potentially come back and retest 37 to 38,000. And that would be a pretty solid opportunity to go long again on Bitcoin. We don't want to buy into downward momentum. All right. Until we see a reversal on shorter time frames, this is not a very, very safe play to try to catch a falling knife. All right. Essentially, I do think that 39.6 breaks, but again, 39.6 is very, very important. And then the 37 to 38,000 zone is very, very important. I'll be looking to buy into longs at that level. Currently, I'm long Solana with a stop loss because also at the time, Ethereum was holding support. And currently, we can see that Ethereum is basically like bouncing around support. But Ethereum was basically holding this 3015 support. Solana had fallen super sharply as well, and it's holding this zone here as well. So basically, I keyed off of the strength that Ethereum was holding support, and I'm basically going to have a stop loss below 100 on Solana, really tight in validation. And if that breaks and Bitcoin ends up retesting 37, if Bitcoin ends up testing 37, I believe that Solana is going to end up retesting 90. Yeah, essentially that's really that. If Bitcoin can keep on falling, then that is not going to be really good for the overall stock market. And yeah, I don't think that Bitcoin stops here. That's the main thing. If it does, then that'd be great. But this downward momentum, I feel like a lot of people are going to continue selling, and people aren't that ballsy to buy into this extreme weakness. So I would just be careful. Overall, it's a good sign that the NASDAQ, the large tech stocks, are showing signs of bottoming. It's a good sign that the lower standard deviation is starting to move upwards as well. Right? So overall, it looks like the market is coming to a short-term bottom soon. That might be at the end of this week, or it could be at the early next week. So keep that in mind. But once again, overall, as long as the SPY is trading below 451, our bias is going to be bearish until proven otherwise, until we find like some sort of strength out of Bitcoin, and until we can bottom out at support. So there's that. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.